Hey, Fit Mama. Jen Oliver here, your host of the Fit Mama podcast. This is the work in to your workout. Hey, Fit Mama. I am so excited. This woman needs no introduction, but I want to introduce her anyway because she is a treat. Today we're talking some big things like vaginal weightlifting. We're talking about orgasms. We're talking about shooting ping pong balls from our vaginas. And you heard it here first. This is a goal of mine, okay? For real. Wait till you hear this woman. This is Kim Anami, and she is here to infuse more passion into your life and your bed. She's a holistic sex and relationship coach, and I talk about so many great things with her today. She is wise beyond her years. She's amazing. She has been in Playboy, Elle, Marie Claire, Shape, Sunday Times in the UK. She has a lot to say, and she has such a great way of speaking, such a great way of conveying what she believes in, what she has researched, what she has found in her many, many years as she has now divides her time between Bali and LA, Los Angeles, and she's weightlifting with her vagina. If you look, hashtag things I lift with my vagina, you will learn all about this. It's so fun. KimAnami.com. I'm going to send you there with all the links. She talks about a lot of her specific videos and audios and her podcasts and all kinds of really great stuff. So tune into this one. It's going to blow your mind. It's going to change your life. It's going to make you come in new ways. And I'm excited for you because I loved it and I can't wait to share this with you. Here she is, Kim Anami. Hey, and welcome to today's episode of the Fit Mama podcast. And you are in for a treat today. Today, I have on holistic sex and relationship expert, vaginal weightlifter, surfer, and orgasmic enlightenment podcast host, Kim Anami. Welcome to the podcast, Kim.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Oh, it is so great to have you. I have been a fan, a follower for quite some time, and I want to hear right from you because I know people are going to be wondering when they hear about you, what is a vaginal weightlifter?
Someone who lifts weights with their vagina. So just like any other part of our body, we exercise regularly because we know that it's good for us to build strength and articulation. Same thing with the vagina. And this has been a neglected part of the anatomy for decades, if not millennia. And there's been, the way that I learned it was back in ancient Taoist times. About 5,000 years ago, when they were studying sexuality and sexual energy, they looked at the practice of using a jade egg in the vagina to create strength and articulation and sentience and increased pleasure and orgasms, and to even increase the pleasure that the partner felt having those experiences. And so this was something I learned decades ago and have been practicing ever since. And in my work, I would come across women who had very little, if any, success doing the classic Kegel exercise. And they felt like they were the only ones who weren't having any success with this. And when I looked into it, I discovered that the actual original exercise that Dr. Kegel, the OBGYN, invented in 1947 involved putting a device inside of the vagina. And so just like any weightlifter knows, is that we use weights for resistance and for feedback. Otherwise, we're just randomly flapping our arms and legs in the wind. And basically, with the modern Kegel exercise is the equivalent to that, where women are just randomly flapping their vaginas in the wind with this idea to just squeeze their vaginas. So the exercise that he developed involved putting this device inside the vagina called the Kegel perineometer, and then women would contract over this device. And so he had an immediate 90% success rate in reversing urinary incontinence. And then over time, as other doctors picked up this method, they removed the concept of having a device inside the vagina. And they just told women to squeeze their vaginas. And immediately the success rate dropped 50%, and it's been plummeting ever since. Like the stats that we have now from the Yale University School of Medicine tell us that 50% of women after childbirth experience POP, or pelvic organ prolapse. Some part of their anatomy is literally falling out. And up to 60% or more of women have issues of urinary incontinence. So these stats are insane. Like this is stuff that has become normalized, but it's not normal. And so all of this is born out of women not exercising their vaginas. And like I said, if you went to the gym and just stared at the weight rack and then flapped your arms and legs in the air and laughed, people would think that you were nuts because you didn't do a real workout. You're like, oh, wow, I really accomplished something. No, you didn't accomplish anything. So after realizing this, I began teaching actively the practice of using a jade egg for vaginal strengthening. And so we insert an egg. I mean, these have become very popular now due to many viral media campaigns I've had talking about this, where the egg is jade. It's carved into the shape of a stone of an egg. It's drilled with a hole through it. It goes inside the vagina, and then you can use and tie then any number of objects to it. And I've tied everything from coffee tables to Murano glass chandeliers to green coconuts, and took pictures of it and had these all over the internet with the hashtag things I lift with my vagina. So women who've practiced the egg have had incredible success. Like I've known women who've had 20 years of urinary incontinence have that remedied within 1 week of using the egg. And so this is the simple exercise of using feedback and resistance that 300 regular so-called Kegels, even though they're not even Kegels because they've been maladapted, won't do. And 5 to 10 minutes a day, 3 or 4 times a week with a jade egg can give you a super powered, turbocharged, orgasmically pleasured, and ping pong ball shooting vagina. I actually assert that this is the normal, healthy baseline for all vaginas to be able to shoot ping pong balls. And what's abnormal is women peeing their pants and vaginas falling out.
Oh, gosh. Preach it, sister. Wow. You say it well. That is, you know what? I don't know why I have not started this way sooner and talking about it. That's amazing. And it makes so much sense. And so when, tell me a little bit about that experience when your videos went viral. And I know you've had a few of those experiences. What was the first one? Do you really catch people off guard with what you say?
Sorry, what's that?
You really catch people off guard with what you say.
So the first video that went viral was one called 10 Reasons to Lift Weights with Your Vagina. And that went up on YouTube and quickly spread. And I was amazed at the response. Like this was all over the place from, Yahoo to the Daily Mail and all kinds of mainstream media publications. And I thought, obviously there's a funny, playful irreverence to it, but there's a very serious underlying issue there. And I think it's also just very indicative of how women are craving this information. And it just isn't out there because in mainstream Western allopathic OBGYN circles, the kinds of approaches that they take are absolutely nightmarish and don't work. Things like sewing pelvic mesh into women's vaginas or their abdomens, like it's completely fucking ludicrous, and even as they were developing these things, like Johnson & Johnson knew internally within their company that these devices were faulty and damaging, and yet they hadn't been tested. They were tested on 3 sheep. And then they released them to the general public. And now there are millions, literally millions of lawsuits against them for malpractice and some of the permanent damage that women have sustained. So all of that to say that the current Western approaches to healing and experiencing pleasure within sexuality, particularly for women, are drastically behind and even archaic. This idea of sewing a mesh into a woman's pelvic floor is just ludicrous, and these are supposed to be people who are expert in these areas and clearly know nothing. I often say that if I had gone to traditional sex school or studied Western science around sex, that I would be broke and unsuccessful. But instead, I did not. And I now have, millions and hundreds of millions of views of viral videos and information that's becoming steadily mainstream in itself because it's actually providing solutions. And I think that for so many people, they don't know what they don't know. And so the only sources of information they're exposed to might be Western science or their OBGYN, and they just assume that those people are somehow telling the truth. And they're often outright just being sponsored by pharmaceutical interests, or they also don't know what they don't know. They've been brainwashed to believe other things. And a lot of what they talk about isn't even based on science or evidence. And so there's a huge pharmaceutical corporate agenda behind them. So anyway, when I come along then and share information that's much more empowering to people and showing them that, hey, the answers and the truth and the power actually lies within your own bodies, and you can do this yourself. You don't need surgery. You don't need drugs. All you need is your intention and your self-discipline to show up and a bit of faith, right? Like a bit of faith to believe that, wow, I can actually do this. I can heal myself. And I think that all people intuitively know this. And when they get presented this information, then they respond to it, right? So when they hear about a jade egg or vaginal weightlifting or, oh no, it's actually normal to shoot ping pong balls with your vagina, I think they get excited, because a part of them inside responds to the truth of this, right? The truth that, yes, you have the power, you can heal your life, even though you're being fed this other story by other interests that have a very strong financial gain in people's not getting healthy and not healing themselves and having a lifetime of dependence on pills or devices and apparatus and surgeries, right? That's a whole other, pathway that I'm completely the opposite of, right? I believe that women and our bodies and all people, men also have this power innately, and we just need to be reminded of it and guided into it. And then you are your own best healer.
Yes. And that sentiment and all that you said, I mean, I just feel so empowered listening to that. And I love that you speak with such a critical mind. And I think that's what so, attracts me to your podcast and the work you do, is that you speak your mind and you're aware, you're articulate, and you really empower people. Has that always been the way for you? I mean, you are so inspiring, Kim. Like, where does that come from?
Oh, thank you. Well, I think growing up, I grew up in a fairly allopathic household. Nobody was overtly ill, but I mean, we went to regular doctors. And I always had this sense listening to them that they were kind of taking stabs in the dark. Like they could never really find the true source of a problem, right? They would just try to throw Band-Aids at it. And these were like minor things, come up over growing up, whatever. And I always had that sense. And then when I started discovering in my late teens, alternative medicine, and that were other pathways, right? Because I never was exposed to that growing up. I immediately lit up and was like, oh, so there's all these other options out there. There's herbal medicine, there's homeopathy, there's all these alternative approaches. I can meditate myself into higher states of consciousness. I can fuck myself into higher states of consciousness, because I found all of these mind-altering experiences and consciousness expanding experiences happening through my sexual explorations as well. So those doors then began to open for me to explore these other pathways, and immediately found powerful results. Like I would explore herbal teas and tinctures and find results from that. I would explore homeopathy and find results from that. My meditation practices, my sexual practices had results. And it was so empowering to realize that I could do these things myself, right? For very little money or no money at all. Like I could do these things myself. And they were permanent and curative. And that was so inspiring and, just joy inducing for me to realize that. And so that, I've really started down that path at, my late teens and never looked back. And just kept opening more and more doors for different healing modalities. And all of these things then became the body, the genre of my work, where I was the person to create the genre of holistic sex and relationship coaching. Nobody was doing that before I came along. You either had OBGYNs or you had kind of giggly, I don't know how to say it, like, ooh, it's a willy, like kind of almost juvenile talking about sex. And I was in the middle of that saying that, I draw from science where it actually is applicable, where it reinforces things that I found in my own explorations, but a lot of tantric and Taoist history where they looked at sex as medicine and a pathway to enlightenment. And then my own explorations that really showed me, like I had from very early on, very cataclysmic and self-actualizing, rebirthing type experiences through sex and deeper vaginal orgasms. And so that showed me, this is the way, this is the path, and the way is through my own body and clearly through my own vagina.
Wow, I love that. I love that you do keep directing it back to the vagina. And I think one of the concepts that I love the most that you talk about, and you were actually the person to introduce me to this. I don't know if you coined this term, but a well-fucked woman. And I love that term. Can you tell us about a well-fucked woman?
Yes, I did coin that term.
Yes.
And this is it's actually a trademarked term from me. So if you see it elsewhere, because lots of people are mimicking it now, I'm the source. So I had my personal experiences of feeling like I was being reborn. This French phrase for orgasm, le petit mort, the little death and rebirth. I felt that very early on, like I was, as I said, self-actualizing through these deep sexual experiences and becoming more of the person that I feel I truly am. So I would come out of the bed, come out of the bedroom, emerge out into the world and feel more like my true self, as though the false programming or ego parts that I'd picked up over the years would just fall away. And I would be more of my true nature. And so that was before I learned anything about Tantra or Taoism. I was just having these experiences through my own sexual explorations. And so I felt this already, and people would respond to me differently. I would walk out into the world and people would be attracted. It was like moths to a flame, that people would just be coming up to me and speaking to me and interested in me and sexual interest in me, and just a whole other way of being in the world, and then how people responded to me in the world. And then years later, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 years post these experiences, I remember being in a gym that I used to work out in, where it was part of my building where I had a studio. And this older German fellow used to come and we'd be working out at the same time a lot. And so we would, talk. And as we got to know each other better, I would come in and he would make these comments like, "Oh, Kim, you're really getting some, hey." Or, "Oh, Kim, it's been a while, hey." And I was like, how the fuck does this guy know how the state of my sex life is? And he was always correct. He was always correct. And then over time, as I got deeper into my own work and practice, I could see this myself, is that when people were well fucked, they would literally be wearing and radiating this kind of energy that was palpable, and people would be responding to it. I've had stories of women who start doing some of the practices I teach them, and they have men like running across the street to talk to them, right? Out of the blue, just to be like, "Hey, you're just so gorgeous. Can I have your phone number?" That they're feeling this energy. And then conversely, when a woman isn't having good sex, or she's been underfucked for a period of time, she starts to invert and contract. And I put out this great video a few years ago called The Epidemic of Sexually Unfulfilled Females. And I wrote an article in Playboy about this as well. I think it was in 2012. And it's on this whole idea, which, interestingly has been in the medical literature for millennia. Like back a couple thousand years ago, Galen and Hippocrates talked about the the ailment of women, especially being underfucked. They didn't call it that. It was called hysteria, right? Hysteria is the Latin phrase for an uneasy womb, which is what they referred to as a woman who wasn't having enough sex. And so I created the modern term then, fukme, F-U-K-M-E, females utterly freaking out about absolutely nothing due to lack of phallic shapes near, in, or around their vaginas, leading to cataclysmic psychopathic moments of intense and troubling repressed sexual tension. So that is fukme. And the video that I've got on YouTube, like the epidemic of sexually unfulfilled females, really demonstrates how women can have issues of anger and frustration and depression and overeating and all of these things that are symptoms of simply being underfucked. And so the well-fucked woman is someone who's really inhabiting and in touch with her sexual energy, regardless of whether she has a sexual partner. So this is a big assertion I make, is that even if a woman is single, she can still be very well fucked. And I don't mean by having casual sex, I mean by self-pleasuring herself. And there's many techniques that I teach people, including one called Meditate, Masturbate, Create, which you can find in a YouTube video of mine called Self-Pleasuring 101. And that's all about how to consciously take your sexual energy and recirculate it through your body and use it as an actual source of energy. So sexual energy is life force energy. This is the energy that creates new life. And if we're not making babies with it, then we can take this energy, harvest it, and then channel it out into the world, whether we're single or coupled. So a huge part of my work is teaching people how to do this, how to take this energy, recirculate it, and then channel it out into the world.
Hey, Fit Mama, I want to interrupt this episode just for a quick reminder to check out the Love Fit Mama Way. If you haven't already checked out the book online, it's available on Amazon. The link is in the show notes. It is a very comprehensive book for you where I explain how the transition into motherhood is a window of opportunity to transform the core of your being as a human and a leader. I go into detail about what you can do physically to rehabilitate your deep inner core after pregnancy and childbirth. It doesn't matter how many years postpartum. I emphasize that being a fit mama all starts with love, and what goes into the embrace, nurture, and enjoy framework as I outline this journey for you. Because it's all about transforming from the inside out, focusing within, not without. Cultivating those healthy habits that stick, that are for you, is what this new generation of fit mamas like you really want. I lay out and I dive into the Fit Mama foundations along with all the relevant tools, new ideas, recommendations, scientific backup, and intriguing perspectives that will leave you feeling empowered Fit Mama and determined to connect deeper with your own core. Regardless if you're male or female, with or without kids of your own, you will find this book thought-provoking and practical in moving you toward true love and reverence towards your body and your life. I guarantee it, Fit Mama. Reach out. Please let me know how you like the book. It's only $4.69 on Kindle, and you have a Kindle app for free on your phone. If you don't, grab a Kindle. They're awesome. You can read it right on your computer though. And the paperback is only $24.95. I honestly know that it's worth it. It is over 10 years of research and pretty much 20 years of experience, plus my whole life. But it is a wealth of knowledge. And I know this makes a really, really great gift for any of those pregnant or new fit mamas out there. I guarantee you're going to feel a breath of fresh air from reading this book, and sharing it with your friends and family is giving love right to them. I talk all about healing your seal and doing the pearl pull-ups to bring yourself back into a place of equilibrium in your core, a nice connection, connecting with your deep inner core, how to rehab, what it all means, and it's super, super clear and simple. So check out the book, get it on Amazon. The link is in the show notes. And back to the episode. Have a great day, Fit Mama. Oh my, wow. Wow. And I mean, that is such a good perspective of looking at it, the energetic perspective. I know for me here, I mean, even here on the Fit Mama podcast, I talk about the work into your workout. I talk about inner size before exercise, because I really see this need of going inwards before we start kind of, going outwards with our energy. And while I love exercise and all the things, I still have always had this sense that there was something created with this intimacy within ourselves. And you really, really highlight that. What would you say, Kim, to someone who, they're maybe they're underfucked, or maybe they're just exhausted, tired, wounded, some form of something, and they've just lost all interest. Maybe it's a libido thing or hormonal, but just in general, it's not a top priority. It's just not even on the list. And it's like, I get it. Kind of like how, I know exercise is going to help me feel more energy, but
right.
Where would we start in that case?
Well, a huge part of what I do is really persuading people that having sex is vitally important to your life, to your marriage, and to your well-being and your energy levels. Everything from your mood to your physical health, all of these things are wildly benefited through having regular sex. Mm-hmm. And I think what can happen during one of the things I say is when you have a headache or you feel tired or you have, say, period cramps or pain, the best thing you can do is to have sex, even though we might be thinking that that's the last thing that we want to do. And so, I think that especially with, let's say, mothers, is that there's a whole bunch of stuff going on, right? Like there's this idea, there's this big sanctioned excuse of, you have children, it's okay if you're not having sex, so people understand if you're not being sexual with your partner. And the irony there is that the greatest resource you have for rejuvenation and vitality and improving your energy levels, improving your mood, improving everything is having sex regularly. And that, for many people, though, the act of giving birth itself becomes a trauma, right? In our culture, the way that birth has become a surgical experience and a medicalized experience, many women walk out of their birth feeling like have trauma or even PTSD because of what was done to them in the name of medicine or, this manufactured emergency, right? The fact that 33% of American women have C-sections in a hospital and only 1.7% of midwifery births have C-sections tells you that there's a different approach in hospital settings, which is really geared towards surgery. And these things take a massive toll on a woman's being, right? Especially if there's this idea that, this was a potential emergency situation. And so instead of coming out of a birth feeling empowered and strengthened, there's a sense of, wow, what the fuck just happened there? And there's no space, there's no permission really given to women to acknowledge this, to say, that was far less than what I was hoping it would be. I've now walked out of there with a lot of hacking up of my body parts. What the fuck? And, instead they're met with just be grateful that you're okay and your baby was okay. And of course, yes, grateful for that, but it's just not acknowledging that there may have been a major trauma right there in the birth experience. Whereas birth, in my view, is a way for a couple to come closer together, to have such a deep, profound bonding experience that this cements them together as a unit to go on to the very challenging work then of raising a child together. Plus you have all these overlays in religion about Madonna whore, so now that the woman can either be a virgin or a whore, but not somewhere in between of like a voracious sexual woman, and all of those things come to head after having a baby. So there's all kinds of things overlaying even just becoming a mother. And and then so I don't believe that it's natural that women lose their sex drive after having children. I think that they do get exhausted and they probably don't realize that. And just for the record, I have a child. So in case you're wondering if I'm not speaking, she hasn't had a baby. No, I've had a baby. I've been there, done that. That this can be a way to access the true power of your connection with your partner as a source of energy. And so sometimes it's just a matter of kickstarting that engine, like you said, with exercise, right? Like I'll often recommend that couples begin the process with a 30-day sex challenge, right? Having sex every day for the next 30 days. And as a way to get their hormones in gear and their body on board, because just like you said, with exercise, if you haven't exercised or haven't exercised for a while, when you first begin to get into that mode again, you have to make yourself do it. You have to discipline yourself to do it. But once you've got a week or 2 weeks or maybe maximum of 3 weeks under your belt, your body and your brain are now on board because they realize all of the highs that they get, neurotransmitter and hormonal highs that they get. And they're like, hey, are we going out for a run yet? When are we going to the gym? And you're like, all right, I'm on it. But at the first bit of that, you may need to kickstart yourself and drag yourself to the gym or drag yourself out for a run. But even as you do that, that within 15 or 20 minutes, again, you start to get those body and brain highs and it feels good. So that's a huge piece, is just that momentum, kicking things into gear. And then your sexual relationship becomes your power source. I did a great podcast on this a couple of months ago called Superpower Couples, where it's the concept that you're getting your energy now from each other. And this is a massive thing that's just misunderstood or not even known about our intimate relationship, is that this is where you can turbocharge your energy and your life, right? You go there to get energy and to get connection. It's your sanctuary for revitalization, right? And the way that I teach people to have sex, the ultimate barometric question I ask is, does sex give you energy? Does it leave you feeling rejuvenated, pleasured, deeply ecstatic, and like it changed your life? And if it doesn't, then you're doing it wrong. And frankly, most people are doing it wrong. They use sex as a way to pass out, to just relieve a bit of stress, rather than using it as a place to completely energize themselves and feel high afterward. I just did another podcast last week on the psychedelics of sex. Actually, that was a video on YouTube talking about how all of the neurotransmitter and hormonal benefits you get are like an altered state of consciousness. But you have to incorporate certain practices like breathing consciously and recirculating energy and having a powerful connection with your partner to access this life-changing power of sex. So that's the question. If it isn't changing your life, you're doing it wrong. And that's not a moral judgment. It's only to say that the ideas you may have had about what sex is as this moral thing or whatever, this shameful thing, as rather than just a way to give yourselves energy and the source of life. That's what people usually don't know. And then when they begin to hear that and get on board with it and start practicing it, like I said, then their bodies and their brains and their relationships show the benefits of doing that. And then it becomes a given. That becomes a natural part of their existence.
Yes. And what a state of being. Like that feeling of a well-fucked woman walking around, just the confidence, that energy she's exuding, that is sort of that je ne sais quoi. And it's like, well, who's that? It's like, she's got this vibe, right? And I mean, this is available to each and every one of us. And I think that's what inspires me so much about your posts and your podcasts and really everything that you do, your videos, etc., because you make it accessible to everyone. And while you are picking up a coffee table, right, you're sharing the merit of moving in that direction. And I just so admire that. And are these the types of things you teach in the Well Fucked Woman Salon program?
Well, first of all, let me say yes. It's what I call the Anami guarantee, that all people can. All women can have voracious libidos. All women can be multi-orgasmic with G-spot orgasms and cervical orgasms and ejaculate across the room. All women can shoot ping pong balls with their vaginas. All men can have sex for 6 hours straight and learn to separate orgasm from ejaculation. These are things that every single person can do. They're not just reserved for some special, gifted, lucky, blessed people. Not at all. All you need is the willingness and then the skills, which is, yes, what I teach. And so in the Well Fucked Woman program, it's all about First of all, removing sexual blockages. So the only things that get in the way of not accessing these powers are blocks that have been superimposed upon you. And then to another extent, not having the right skills. But blocks such as what I said earlier, like let's say you grew up in a religious household and you are, coated over with all of this shame and guilt around sexuality. Well, then you have to try to break through that, right? Or this Madonna whore thing, right? Where women overall in the culture are given this, label of being a slut if they're simply openly sexual and enjoy sex, right? They're very quick to be shut down and insulted in that way. Like when someone's trying to insult a woman, they'll just call her a slut, like having no knowledge about her sexual adventures or history or anything. It's just become this insult to give to women, right? To vilify her in some way. Having sexual abuse in your past, right? That's going to be a block that if it isn't resolved and healed and cleared, it's going to impede your sex life going forward. For example, many women not many, but some women have a condition of what I call vagina on lockdown, where they either have painful sex or their vagina will not even open. And if you look at their history, there's almost without exception some kind of sexual trauma that's happened to them, right? So this isn't just a random thing that their vagina is doing. Their vagina is very wise and saying, hey, before I can fully open and relax, you need to heal me because something happened here and I need some healing, right? So this is about listening to the messages of our bodies. So a huge part of my work and in the Well Fucked Woman program, we talk about that. I talk about how to self-pleasure, how to breathe and use and tap into the sexual energy so you can recirculate it and use it in your life as a rejuvenation technique, as healing, and even as a creative source, right? I often say that my life and my creativity are powered by my vagina. Hashtag powered by vagina is what I talk about, where this is how, the second chakra is sexuality, creativity, and money. And so all of these things are interconnected. When a woman or a person in general really inhabits their sexual selves, their creative powers go up and their money attraction powers go up. We talk about utilizing feminine energy, right? So we've often in the modern world been encouraged to occupy more of our masculine energy, to go out there and work really hard and slog and get things done, where there's this beautiful way when we learn to occupy more of our feminine energy where we can then attract and magnetize to us by being receiving vessels, right? That's the archetypal feminine. And so we don't have to work as hard as we think of masculine energy doing. There's other ways to bring things into our lives. We go into all the different orgasms from clitoral to G-spot to cervical and how to get there. I do some beautiful breast massage and breast awakening practices. And then I go into my metaphysical sex acts, right? Like I'm all about the idea that there are deeper, as I said, life-altering elements of conscious sex. And so we talk all about oral sex, manual sex, deep throating, anal sex, like how to have these anal orgasms and how deep throating can actually help you to find your voice and your true expression in the world. So we go through all of this and then talk about this, as I said, more on this sex and money connection. So how does amplifying your sexual energy help to make you rich? It's one of the fastest ways you can get rich is to have more gourmet sex. And gourmet, I'll break this down too. I make a difference between junk food sex and gourmet sex. And the definition of gourmet sex is more of what I said earlier. Does it change your life? Does it make you a better person? Where junk food sex is more like the throwaway, very quick, bust out an orgasm type of sex that, like a sugar high, often leaves you feeling drained afterward. Mm-hmm. So we're all about the cultivation of gourmet conscious sex and having sexual adventures and encounters that enrich and build and rejuvenate your life.
Wow. I'm getting pretty excited here. This is like, wow. I'm so inspired by this. And I think when we have these conversations, it really is an opportunity for us to embrace what we already have. And I think we spend so much time, especially as women and moms, looking outward, right? Looking for the next thing. And I think while, there can be great programs and things out there, yours, it sounds like the program, to really get to the root of it, like you said, right? The difference between that allopathic medicine and really getting underneath, and instead of putting a Band-Aid on, just saying, hey, I'm going to get down and in with this. And the content of that program sounds amazing. Especially for where to begin, I think there's so many elements there that almost is like, whoever talked about that in sex education, they were trying to tell you the minimum amount, right? They were like, don't get any ideas. Before there was Google, there was just like figuring it out on the schoolyard. And it's like, now there are so many things out there that I think, to be honest, much like how I view the fitness industry now, it's almost more often puts people in a place of feeling unworthy, whereas your stuff just doesn't do that. It does the opposite with so much empowerment.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the typical sex education, especially in the Western world and most of the world, I'd say, except for some more progressive European countries, is sex will kill you and sex will get you pregnant. And that's it. Mm. And there isn't any kind of really deep acknowledgement of the true power of sex and how to take that out in the world. And so most people fumble along and they have, again, like I said, no idea what they don't know, because how would you know? And a huge part of what I do is really helping people to realize it's just to view sex in a different way, to view sex as a tool in your personal growth toolbox, just like exercise and eating well and meditation and whatever spiritual practices you might have. I look at sex the same way, that this is a way to self-realize, to shed parts of yourself that you don't need anymore, that have been superimposed upon you, to radically clear and accelerate your evolution, right? This is one of the fastest and most powerful personal growth tools that I've ever used. And I've used a lot, from in my late teens, exploring all of these alternative healing modalities. And I would say, hands down, one of the most, if not the most powerful, were my conscious sexual explorations. Mm-hmm. And this is such a hidden tool, right? Like I just did another podcast a couple of weeks back on the censorship of sex. Mm-hmm. And why was it hidden from people? Why is this very mutated and strange, full of shame notion placed on top of sex? And my assertion is that because this is a massively powerful source for people, right? Your own source. And so rather than having to seek outside sources and rely on other things, especially, like I said, drugs or surgery or machines or whatever, no. You've got that power literally at your fingertips, between your legs. And I'm all about how to teach people to use that. And, yes, you pay for my course, but the idea is that you're not paying for that for the rest of your life, right? Like you take that and you can use these tools for your lifetime rather than having to come back and fill a prescription or, do all of these things forever. I don't support that as a business model, right? I support self-empowerment as a business model and learning the skills. And then you go off and you have that for yourselves. So, my podcast is a great source of education around all of these things, right? It's called Orgasmic Enlightenment. And my YouTube channel is also great. There's tons of free information on both of those platforms to, like I said, help you to see what sex really is. What have you not been told that you're totally missing out on and that is possible for all people? And then, yes, to take it further are my online programs that I have running throughout the year. There's the Well Fucked Woman, which begins on July the 30th and opens for registration mid-July. I have a course for men, Sexual Mastery for Men, one for vaginas, Vaginal Kung Fu, coming together for couples. And then I have one called Sexy Mama, which is holistic pregnancy and ecstatic birth, because I truly believe that a woman's birth is meant to be the largest orgasm she ever has. And the fact that we're so far from that as a reality tells us how far off base we've come, right? And how much women have been, their bodies have been co-opted, right? To become more dependent on outside sources rather than this becoming a real self-defining and self-realizing experience for them and their child.
So true. So true. And what a dream to have more women feel that orgasmic experience with birth, right? Wow.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes. And I think that, and let me make it clear that I'm not laying any kind of shame on any woman who had something opposite than that, which is frankly most women. It's that there's a system in place that is really trying to program women to have that kind of a birth experience. Like I have a great free preview video series on my website for that salon on holistic pregnancy and ecstatic birth. It's an hour worth of video content that's really breaks this all down. So I zero, have any kind of judgment or, guilt or shame towards women who've had these experiences. I simply want women to know that there's so many other ways to do this, and that there's a system of, even a major financial system that's in place that's trying to keep them from that knowledge and power. And because I believe that birth was really meant to be this massive awakening experience for a woman, really, and that most women simply aren't obtaining that because they're having a birth that's often more of a crisis than it is a blissful experience, right? So I'm all about just letting people know what's available to them and then giving them the tools to get there.
It's so, so, so empowering. And so much of what you talk about with regards to the normalization of dysfunction, I love, because you point out things that we sort of just take for granted, or we almost just take as that what we call normal. And like you said, it's not normal. We don't need to live with these things. And just because they're normalized and, 33% of people end up with this surgery or whatever, it's like, it doesn't make it something that we just need to buy into, right? And I think you keep having that conversation so well. And in a really, like you said, non-judgmental way, it's just opening up these conversations. And I feel so much value. Is there anything, Kim, that you want to leave us with? Anything you don't get to talk about enough or you want to highlight before we end this episode? You are such a wealth of wisdom, and I could just listen to you speak forever.
Thank you. I'm glad that you appreciate that. And just to reiterate, like I said, there's kind of this theme out there of like don't make women feel bad if they can't do these things. And that's not my approach at all. It's like, I think that attitude is actually quite patronizing. I'm all about giving women the tools and the knowledge and, like I said, the understanding that this is capable, they're capable, and all women, all men are able to attain these places and then give them the tools, right? And so I think to leave on that note, to really reiterate that all people can. And if you want to start getting proof, like listen to some of my content, right? And a lot of my podcasts will have a featurette called our Well Fucked All Stars. And these are interviews I do with people who've gone through my courses and had these miraculous changes. Like, for example, we have a podcast episode that came out last year called How to Have Vaginal Orgasms. And we interviewed Amanda. And she was a woman who had not had any orgasms ever. Right? She had a young child and a partner, worked full time, and she came into the salon, never had, not even a clitoral orgasm. And she just applied herself, right? She threw herself into the work and was determined to get there. So within that program, she had her first clitoral orgasm, her first G-spot orgasm. But let me tell you, it's a great story and interview. I'd highly recommend listening to it. But she, despite having a child and a partner and a job, made time. So as soon as her son went down for a nap, she was in bed. She was in bed, self-pleasuring, using a jade egg, using our dildos, like whatever she could to put in the time and the effort. She would be driving home from work and she would stop someplace and park the car and self-pleasure just to get in another hour of practice. and then a few months later, she had her first cervical orgasm. But so this is a woman who thought she was just one of those women. She dared to believe otherwise. She put in the time and the effort, and boom, she's now a well-fucked all-star. She's had these, and she had an orgasmic birth. Her first childbirth was a home birth, and I think was like pretty, maybe it wouldn't have described it as orgasmic, but quite self-empowering. And then her second birth after doing my work was fully orgasmic, right? Like
Wow.
total, like hallucinogenic, psychedelic kind of wild orgasmic birth.
Uh,
So these things are possible for all people. I really want to leave you with that.
Oh, wow. Well, I will be shouting this from the rooftops, sharing this all over the world because I'm so excited. This is such an empowering interview. You are so inspiring, Kim. Your time, your energy, your wisdom, and your directness, I just love. We are going to link up all those things that we talked about in here so that they can just click those links, find you, find the programs, find the YouTube videos, all that stuff. I'm definitely going to mention to follow you on social media. Particularly, I love your Instagram, and I probably share at least one of your pictures at least a couple times a week because and it's not just a picture. You pick the best pictures, but you write the best stuff. And I just sit there always in awe with my jaw dropped. And I'm like, I freaking love this woman. She's so amazing. So you are awesome. Everybody's going to be following you and being so inspired and empowered. And I can't wait to start my own vaginal weightlifting journey. So do I go to your site to get my yoni egg? Tell me about that.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for all of the love and acknowledgement. I really appreciate that. Well, we have my Vaginal Kung Fu Salon is our 8-week program, and that runs once a year. That starts in late January each year. But in my Anami Alchemia online shop, and you'll have the link for that, we sell a jade egg kit and mini salonette. So this is a kit you can buy anytime. It comes with the egg and all your lifting apparatus, including rose quartz, lifting weight stones, and then a series of videos that show you exactly what to do to get you started, plus 3 or 4 guided MP3s for exercise routines, as well as 3 guided visualizations to use with the egg. So this you can start anytime, and that's to keep people, at least get them started before the full length salon runs. And then in the future, if you ever want to join the full length salon, you'll receive a credit towards the cost of the full salon. But the do-it-yourself jade egg kit has everything that you need to get started. And because, I'm all about not just giving people, say, physical exercises, like you said, there's a whole inner journey there as well. All of my work always has to have a mind-body component to it. So I don't just sell the egg. I sell, very clear instructions how to use it. Plus, like I said, guided visualizations to help you connect more energetically, because the blockages or the lack or the disconnect isn't just physical, right? There's, just like, say, with food, there's emotional reasons why people eat. They're, craving a level of intimacy or something that they want to fulfill. And the same thing sexually, and with women connecting to their sexuality and their vagina, is that there's other layers there. So all of my work always acknowledges that. Even in that short course, there's still a more emotional, mental, energetic component there as well.
Oh, wow. I love it. This is so super juicy, Kim. Thank you. Thank you once again. We'll link that. People will be able to find it and join you. And I am so excited to see all these well-fucked, multi-orgasmic women. Great. Yes. Oh, you're so great. Thank you so much. And have such a great day, Kim. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me and spreading the love.
Oh, you're welcome. Anytime. Thank you. Have a great day, Fit Mama. Namaste.